On the agenda tonight, we're going back to 1970. We're going to be taking a look at Deep Purple, and they're going to be performing Child in Time. Hello, Phil here from Wings of Pegasus, and welcome to another analysis video. If you enjoy this video, please give it a thumbs up and subscribe. So, to give you guys fair warning, I am going to be jumping into this one quite a lot because there are so many things to point out. And I'm going to leave a link to the performance video in the description below, just in case you guys want to watch it the whole way through without me interrupting it. But you might be interrupted by adverts, but that's another thing. So we'll get the guys up on screen and we'll see how they get on.
Sweet child in time, you'll see the line that's drawn between the good and the bad. See the blind man, yeah, he's shooting at the world, bullets flying, taking toll. You have, and you've not been here, you've not been hit by flying lead. You better close your eyes, you better bow your head. Wait for the ricochet.
I'm just going to jump in here because already in this performance, we have had a vocal masterclass and Ian is only just getting started. It's Ian Gillan here on lead vocal. So when we're listening to his voice and the dynamic control that's in there, the killer is when he hits this male tenor high C in a really clean, light head voice sound. And what you'll find with guys that they struggle to get to that pitch anyway, the male tenor high C, it's seen as the holy grail in classical music. But I will get the piano up on screen so you guys can see exactly where that sits on your pianos for reference. But it's having the control to hit it so cleanly. You might find some guys that can belt it out and they have to strain to get up there. But as soon as you hear a guy sing it like this, you know that this guy can sing. He's got total control of his airflow, his vocal cords, his pitch, and you're just looking forward to the rest of the performance because he's already shown you his hand. He's shown you all of the aces in a row, and he never struggles with any of these notes in the beginning of the song. We know, well, you might not know, but if you don't know where it's going, you're in for a surprise. But you know already that vocally, he's got great technique. When I talk about that dynamic control and just the amount of technique that is in the opening vocal of this song, and to give an example, not that I can sing like Ian, I wish, but when we start off, we've got this sweet child in time, and you can hear there that combination of vibrato and tremolo vibrato. So we've got the two sweet child in time, and we've got the note that's going ah, but also the tremolo vibrato, which is controlling the diaphragm and going ah, and breathing that vibrato, and it's the combination of those two things. So straight away, the first line of the song, we've got something technically that's mixing techniques together. It has such a unique sound, it's so expressive, and as things progress, we then get see the blind man, and now you can feel the pressure that Ian's applying to the notes just a little bit more, leaning on his diaphragm a bit to get that see the blind man, he's shooting at the world. And that little flip up to an A4, that was that little flip up when I do it again, he's going, he's shooting at the world. And then he's back into his chest voice. But having that control and the way that Ian does it is flawless. And because of his application of technique in this early stage, you know that he's more than likely got all the range in the world, all the control in the world, because singing softly and accurately with a clean tone is the hardest thing to do. Loads of guys especially can strain and push out notes, but hitting notes with ease and also finesse, that's the key word. To be able to hit notes that are high up in pitch with finesse takes so much control and technique, and Ian definitely has that. Another thing you'll notice is the way that Ian places his finger in his ear in order to hear these notes that he's singing more clearly, and especially in this kind of range, these are the kind of notes that you are going to hear really clearly in your head. And when singers go up into their falsetto, that's when you sometimes see them put their finger in their ear, especially if they're performing live with a live band, because sometimes you can't even hear your own voice and you don't have the luxury of a fallback monitor at the front of the stage. So you can look out for that as well. But this is the kind of video and performance you could analyze for years. So we'll jump back into it, but then I'm probably going to be interrupting it immediately anyway, but let's see how we get on. Just to throw it in there, this is the C5, way up there, male tenor range here, and counter tenor range. And now he's hitting it in that crystal clear head voice, a little bit of rasp on there as well, really going for it. And brace yourselves for the next part. I'm just going to jump in here just to mention that the note we had there from Ian vocally would have been an A5. So if you've got your guitars out, that's going to be the 17th fret of your high E string. And I will get the guitar out later to go through a few things, but I'll also get that piano up on screen so you can see the range that's being covered here as well. Because with Ian, I think we're starting down in the verse at about A3. So we get 2 octaves of vocal here. I do mention in other videos about great singers who have that 1 octave range within a composition from the verse to the chorus in order to take you on that journey. And this is a great example of someone with a fantastic range, but uses the range in the most effective way. Because sometimes when somebody's singing a particular song, it can turn into a little bit of a show-off piece or just having notes in there for the sake of it. Whereas with this particular composition, the scream is exactly the kind of emotion that they wanted to get from this song, and having the impact of that scream as well. Something else I want to throw in here is about other players, and Ritchie Blackmore, for example, who plays the guitar and doesn't sing at the level that Ian does, because it's a common thing for instrumentalists to think that a singer can just sing like they do night after night and they will just be able to do it. It's not like playing a guitar. When you tune up your guitar, it doesn't matter if you've got a cold, if you're not feeling well, if you fret the 17th fret on your high E string, that is going to give you an A5. It will. It's guaranteed. Whereas when you're singing, it is totally dependent on your vocal cords, on your body, whether you're feeling well, whether your voice has been strained recently. And it's not something that you just suddenly tell your vocal cords to hit an A5 and they will do it magically. It doesn't work that way. So this is why with Ian, it did get to a point where he just said flat out, I'm not singing this anymore. I am going to stop because of the strain it's placing on my voice. And Ian would have wanted to have some kind of longevity with his voice and his vocal career in the future. So doing this song night after night is just a no-go. And unfortunately, Ritchie was one of those guys that would start playing the song, even though Ian had said to the band, we're not going to be playing this tonight because my vocals aren't up to it. Ritchie would start playing the song, the crowd would go wild because they know the song, and then Ian would have to perform it. And by the way, there is no more efficient way of doing vocal damage than performing songs that force you to strain and hit notes outside of your comfortable range night after night. And that is certainly what was placed at Ian's door when guys like Ritchie would start up with this song, and he knows that he can't sing it. He's not in the right vocal place in order to do it. Let's just throw this in there as well, that when you're looking at a performance like this, most vocalists would be happy singing like this once in their life, let alone having to do it multiple nights a week and being on tour and just having to subject your vocal cords to this kind of punishment, because that's what it is. When Ian says this is outside his range, that's what he is doing. He is trying to force his vocal to get there, and he might be able to nail it on one night, but then when you're talking about 2 nights, 3 nights, 4 nights in a row, that is some serious heavy-duty vocal potential damage that he would have been doing. So I'm not surprised at all that he just said flat out, I'm not performing this anymore. Back in the day, I mean, we're talking 1970 here. Let's put this in perspective. I've done a video, it was last Wednesday, that we were looking at Leslie West and Mountain, the band 1969 at Woodstock. I did mention it in that video about the fact that they were hearing this sound that was effectively heavy metal, but they didn't know what it was, because when we're talking about the late 60s, we're talking about the Beatles coming to an end and Beatlemania, that kind of music, then jumping straight into what would now be classed as heavy metal. And 1970, just a year after Mountain and playing at Woodstock, and people are getting introduced to that sound, Leslie West was a huge part of this all happening in the first place. But Deep Purple were such a heavy sound, and you can see it in this performance. The audience don't know what to make of it because they haven't heard this before. Another huge thing to mention about progressive bands. What happened was, throughout the 60s, you would have bands that would play their instruments and sing, and there might be a band where you would say, oh, that band have got a great lead guitarist, or that band have got a great singer. And there'd be individual members where you would say they excelled. Whereas when you start talking about the heavier genres of music, as we have with Deep Purple here, we now had a case where you could say about a band, they've got a great drummer, they've got a great keys player, they've got an amazing vocalist, they've got a great lead guitarist, they've got a fantastic bassist, and you had 4 or 5 guys in a band at one time who were all excellent instrumentally, individually. So it meant that when you started getting progressive music, this is the only reason it was possible. is because you had individuals in the band who could all hold your attention and express through their instrument during a gig. And they could do a song like this. We're talking over 10 minutes on the original record, because they've got individuals who are at the top of their game on their instrument. When you're listening to a particular instrumentalist who isn't a great lead player, they can't play for a minute or 2 minutes or 3 minutes and hold your attention, because they haven't got the ability to do that. So for them, playing progressively wasn't possible. They didn't have all the tools that they needed or required in order to hold your attention for that long. Whereas when we're talking about bands like Deep Purple, they had the ability to hold your attention on one instrument at a time. And then when they all came together and started trading lines and also doubling up on lines, you'll see here John Lord harmonizing with Richie Blackmore on guitar. If you don't know who they are, we're looking at Richie here. But you'll hear John come in with a harmony line when we've got the lead line on guitar from Richie. And all of these things, top-level musicians can just do it at a drop of a hat. And that's why these performances are so engaging and can go on for so long, because they've all got the individual ability to make it happen. Another thing to point out, just before we get back into the video, we're only 3.5 minutes into it, so we'll try and speed things along a little bit. But it's the relentlessness of the vocal as well that you've got to take into consideration. This isn't a high note. When you go to watch a band and there might be a particular high note that the vocalist hits in one particular song and you're all waiting for that high note, this is consistent high notes and just ridiculous high notes. Once he's sung through a vocal phrase, he's got to do the exact same vocal phrase all over again and then all over again, and then it increases in pitch and he has to do it all over again, and it is just relentless. But we'll get back into the performance where we've now got this instrumental breakdown.
Sweet child, in time you'll see the line that's drawn between the good and the shooting at the world, bullets flying. Oh, they're taking toll. If you've been bad, Lord, I bet you have. And you've not been hit, not been hit by flying lead. You better close your eyes. You'd better bow your head. Wait for the ricochet.
And there we have it. Another thing to notice about this whole performance and the composition is the way that we go full circle, and at the end we end in chaos, and it's a lot to do with the direction of the composition and relating things to Vietnam, and it was written in that kind of vein, having a little reference to that. So you've got the chaos that the song ends with, but it's organized at the beginning dynamically. We're so low down and we just open up into the screams. So it's something that the great bands and artists do. There's always something running parallel to the music, is that meaning and lyrical content and a message. And we definitely have that with this composition, but such a great live performance of that composition. So just to get into the guitar, and this is one of those videos and performances you could analyze for years because of Ritchie Blackmore's playing in it, but just to go over some basic principles of what's going on. Also, let me point out the notes that Ian's singing here, because I mentioned that A3, and that's the A4, the A5, all the way up there. So crazy range to be covering vocally, and you can also throw into the equation that this won't be Ian's lowest note vocally. He'll be able to go well lower than that. So just such an expansive range that he has vocally. But getting into our lead shapes, because we've got this A minor and we've got our jump from G to A minor and then from F to G. It means that sometimes you'll hear this lines that are being played in that minor pentatonic shape 1 in A minor. But when we have, you'll also hear when we go down to the G, Richie will also play that minor pentatonic shape, but over the top of the major chord. So that you might get a little bit of a clash in there, but this is the point. There are no rules. You can do whatever you want, and that is rock and roll at the end of the day. So when we've got this shape, we've got a lot of blues scale in here as well. So it means that when we get up into our standard pentatonic shape 1, if you start putting the blues scale in there, it's only going to be one extra note on that A string. And that little finger there. And this is something that you'll hear the alternate picking and Richie just going through descending that blues line there. Also he'll also get into that kind of stuff, unison bends. What Richie does is take notes from the chord, he arpeggiates the chord with techniques as he ascends. And also, this isn't something that is pre-planned, and you can tell by the way that Richie's playing, it's more of a free-form jam that we get into here. And this is what all of the top players can do. They can just take it, the chord progression, and jam over it and just extend it as much as they want. They have a very particular length of time or bars that they're going to be playing over, and then they come back into the song where they bring it all back down again and get back into the verse. But from that playing perspective, it means that once we've got our A minor chord, for example, when we get up to the 12th fret, in order to play your A minor chord up at the top here, you would have to play that same shape. But what Richie does, using this for lead, it means that he is taking those 3 notes from his A minor, and we get this kind of sound. So, and he also goes to a semitone underneath this A as well, so going out to the A flat. So because it's more of that free-form jam, it means that sometimes you'll see Richie doing something where, for example, just running up, and he's just going up the fretboard with a particular bit of muscle memory, just repeating the same line ascending. So we're not sticking to any keys there. But a really important thing to point out is that he will hook you in with a little bit of melody. And that's something that we do have, which comes in, and then John plays the keyboard over the top and harmonizes. And it's the... I think we've got this again. This is something that Richie does. He's effectively just doing a little bit of a 2-string sweep here. So when we get... we've got, he also goes, but this is the melody that comes in that pulls you in from the chaos that's happened previously. So once we've got this, I'm going to slow it down. I mean, Richie plays it super fast, but I think the melody is going... It's kind of like that. In order to play it like Richie, you've just got to practice the muscle memory and just repeat that. And by the way, it's getting used to that right hand as well. Just the down, down, up, in order to follow these notes on. And a lot of people might be used to arpeggiating that A minor going down to... And that is totally different muscle memory. So this is the thing, that you have to literally learn each line as an independent exercise and just gradually speed it up. And once you've got that, it means that you can just get into that if you're in A minor, of course. If you move it down a couple of frets, then you'll be in G minor. So it's the kind of techniques that cross over to every key. And pretty much when you know your way around the guitar, you can just copy and paste techniques like this into every key. It doesn't matter. You'll just be moving that same thing around the fretboard. Another thing is the way that Richie plays with reckless abandon, or at least it seems like he does, because of this freeform jam type setup. It means that when he's in this A minor, he's going, and he's just playing a little trill on that D string, just hammering on that third finger on and off. At one point he slides up and he's not looking, and he goes to the wrong fret, and he was aiming for just a little bit higher than he went, but then he goes straight back down again. But you can tell just by doing that how relaxed he is, that he's just in the groove, and it doesn't really matter about technique or being so exact with everything that he's playing. You'll also hear, for example, that kind of thing where there's a little open G string that rings out, but it's because they're just jamming this out. They're going with the feeling. They're not being exact. They're not worrying about hitting a wrong note here or there and saying, oh, guys, let's stop because I accidentally hit a wrong note. They're not really taking in everything that they're playing from a technical perspective and trying to get it perfect. It's just a little bit rough around the edges, but that's the point. That is what this kind of music is all about, because that's where the emotion is, that's where players push their playing to the edge, and the edge is always where the magic happens when you're talking about inspired playing, extemporization, and watching the greats of guitar. They just come up with their best stuff when they're right on the edge, and that's certainly the way that Richie played. But I can tell that this video has already gone on for a while, especially considering the featured video that we're looking at. It is a long performance, but there is so much to point out there. Like I said, it could go on for years, but thank you guys for suggesting this video for me to take a look at, and keep those suggestions coming in the comments below. Let me know what you guys think, and if you did enjoy this video, please give it a thumbs up and subscribe, and I'll see you guys at the next one. Rock!